Welcome, everybody, to what we're still referring to as the Lithorati Podcast. My name is Rich. This is either episode 2 or maybe part 2 of episode 1. I guess we've got more than one recording now, so that means we technically qualify as a podcast. Congratulations, Tim, on your first successful podcast.
Thanks, man. Congratulations to you as well.
Woohoo! Yeah. Tim is again joining us. Tim is a fellow Guns N' Roses fan, our resident GNR memorabilia expert, and a fellow lithograph obsessive. In the first episode, we covered the first half or so of the 2016 lithographs, talking perhaps a little more than we originally expected, but we are primed and ready to go. Shall we just get back into it, Tim?
Let's do it, man.
All right. Moving right along to Atlanta.
The Walking Dead.
Great design. Great play with negative space. Very nice color palette. That was the first thing that I saw that I noticed when I first saw this. Very subtle, almost sort of pastel sort of color palette, which I think is done really, really well. Like you look at all the other designs, and usually they're very high contrast sort of colors, or very sort of vibrant colors, and this is a lot more muted but done in a really classy way, using a lot of white also brightens it up and it stands out. You look at it in a sea of otherwise dark lithos, and it really stands out.
Well, totally agree. A unique color scheme, which is always a positive. Don't wrong. I have nothing wrong with dark stuff too, but I mean, I like variety, and this serves to help with that. And am I crazy, or if you look at, you see like the character, like the zombies in the foreground. If you look really hard, you can see like designs on their shirts, right? Like the first one there.
A couple of them are wearing. Yeah, a couple of them I think are wearing Guns N' Roses shirts.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. Right? Which of course makes sense because it's supposed to be the venue where they're playing. I think in the background there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool that they did that. That they did that.
Do you have the shirt for this?
I do, right? And I want to say,
is it white?
I think, let me check real quick. I want to say that. Well, I can't remember that. I don't know. I'd have to imagine it. Wow, what am I doing here? I'd have to imagine that it is, because I don't know why it wouldn't be. But let's check here real quick. Let's see here.
Because that's one.
It is.
That's certainly one
thing.
It
is white. Yep.
Yeah, because that's certainly one thing that I like, and I think I would prefer if they did it a little bit more often, is to change up the color of the event shirt.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I like about some of those. There's a few shows, especially some in Europe, that they use different colors than they usually use for GNR shirts, right? And I like that too, actually, right? And on the shirt,
one of my favorites is Zurich. Zurich's a white shirt.
Oh yeah, that one's really great, right? Like
Yeah.
And by the way, the term is scratchboard art. That
oh, there we go. I did one when I was a kid in grade school. I remember you use wax crayons to create the colored background, and then you just paint black paint over it, and then you scratch it away with a toothpick or whatever.
Right? Yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
But yeah, this one's it's a classic. Although, if I remember correctly, and I don't know what it is, but a lot of people don't like this one. I don't know if they're not a fan of The Walking Dead, if that's what it is, or I don't know what they don't like about it, but...
it is a relatively simple design. Maybe they wanted a little bit more pizzazz.
Yeah, I guess so, I mean... Yeah,
well... All right, Orlando.
Now, first of all, let me ask you, do you think... I've heard some people say this, and I can see what they're talking about, but it can also just be a coincidence. Do you think that's supposed to be like a skull, like in the background, kind of like the GNR circle logo is one eye, and that island with the trees is another eye, and that other island with like the grass sticking out of it, that's like the nose? You know what I mean, right?
Yes. Yeah. Right. No, it's 100%. That's what it's meant to be.
Oh, okay.
100%. That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah. Another one that again, it's not a top 5 for me, but I do like it a lot.
I like it. I liked it a lot more when I saw it in person. Like, I liked it to begin with. Don't get me wrong, but it's even cooler in person because the colors pop.
Yeah.
That's really the one thing that I love is the colors. And plus I don't know why, but there's just something I like about the way Arian Bueller draws roses. The roses in
Yeah.
Chicago Night
Yeah.
One, the rose in Cincinnati. They're very cool. I don't know. There's just something about the way that he draws roses, and I think it makes it look really really classy. I think also this was one of the first lithos I saw that had a reasonably high price tag at the time that I was looking for it. And again, like I said, I was late to the game, but from what I've heard, Orlando was around about the time the Orlando concert was around about the time that people really got serious about reselling,
Yeah.
and people were snapping them up with the sole intention of flipping them for a profit, which I guess this is as good a time as any to discuss the topic. I you know I am not inherently against the idea of flipping lithos. I've discussed this before with you and with other people that if not for resellers, I doubt either you or I or anybody would have anywhere nearly as many lithos as we have. Uh, it would just simply be impossible.
For
We
sure.
both know
Right.
we both know a lot of Guns N' Roses fans. We've got a lot of friends personally and connect with a lot of fans via forums and so on and so forth. But we definitely don't know that many that we haven't had to get stuff from eBay. So I'm happy that resellers exist. I'm happy that people are able to buy a reasonable amount of lithos. I am very much, however, against the idea of a one litho restriction. I think that's an awful idea. I think that allowing idiots to, allowing idiots to go to concerts and buy 50 or 60 or 80 or 100 lithos is even worse. But, we don't have to have draconian restrictions to prevent assholes like that from being assholes.
Yeah, there seems
I
to be like
think,
some happy medium. Like, I don't know, five maybe? I'm not sure.
yeah,
10? I don't know.
I
Right.
think just put a reasonable limit on the lithos, or even better, how about you just increase the volume printed? You know,
Right. Right. You
the
know?
the first two Las Vegas lithos were printed in volumes of 1,000 each. They still show up on eBay for what, $150, which is not much considering that the concerts were nearly 4 years ago. Yeah, imagine if all the lithos had been like that. If they'd all been printed in volumes of 1,000, and they were all going for 100 to 150 on eBay
Oh
four
my
years
god,
later.
yeah,
You know,
well, and sometimes you have like this isn't the best example of this, but sometimes like the reverse, right? Like look at Europe where some prints only had like 80, right? And yet you can still
that's
find them. And
insane.
then like Bilbao, which had 250, which you can, I wouldn't, like you
Never
said,
get. You
right,
can never get. Yeah,
right. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
like it's kind of weird. Um, but yeah, I'm not against, and I will say this though, to anyone who's thinking about getting into um, buying. I'm gonna buy next concert I go. I'm gonna buy a bunch and sell them. Don't think it's automatically gonna be a moneymaker. One thing that's weird about life is that like it's very fickle. What people, the designs that people like and the designs that they hate, right? And so. Um, I mean, look at this last concert in Miami, right? Now, forget about whether the design is nice or not, right? I still see the seller on eBay, and they can't get more than cost for it, right? So at that point, it's
Right.
actually like the time that's taking you to get all these and mail them out and everything is probably costing you money in terms of your time and everything, right? And some of them are actually selling below cost for that last design. So you never know. I wouldn't advise people to do it thinking that's going to be a money maker for them. Um, and you'll see me if people have ever seen me at shows. I'll buy multiple shirts or multiple lithographs, and I don't do that to make money. I'm buying it for other friends and stuff, But again, if people do, like you said, I'm not against people making money. I'm not against capitalism or whatever. I understand. It is what it is. Um, just try to be cool about it. That's all, right? Right?
I think there's a similar issue that's happening in Japan at the moment, with all of the coronavirus issues that are happening in around the world, and especially in Asia. Uh, there's been a huge run on face masks, and so there's people that are going to drugstores and buying boxes of face masks for $10, and then flipping them on the Japanese version of eBay for $100.
Damn.
And that's crazy. And but the thing is, I'm not inherently against the idea of flipping them for a profit. Like
Well,
if you, but to me the issue is not, you don't restrict. Well, this is just my personal opinion. You don't restrict someone's ability to try to sell it for. You don't try to restrict someone's ability to sell a $10 item for $100. You restrict their ability to get 100 boxes of those and try to flip them for that. If you can go to the drugstore and buy one
I
box,
see what you mean.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want with one box or two boxes, right? But you shouldn't be able to go and buy 100 boxes and do the same thing. And the same thing goes with these lithos. That if you feel desperately inclined to simply go to these concerts with the intention of buying these lithographs to flip them for a healthy profit, you should be allowed to do that, but you shouldn't be allowed to buy 100 of them.
Right. I see what you mean. Yeah. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Right.
And whether you get $100 for a $10 item, regardless of whether you get $500 for that $50 poster, that's up to, it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The value is whatever someone's willing to pay for something. That's a separate issue. If you might not be able to. You might think that something's worth $500. This poster is worth $500, but it really isn't, and no one's knocking down your door to buy it off of you. But the bigger issue at hand is there shouldn't be possible for someone to end up with 50 or 60 of these lithos and get to ruin the ruin the fun of so many fans.
Right. Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Really. What more can I say? Right.
Yeah. So I think shall we move on to arguably one of the more controversial designs?
Well, it's a source of great shame for me because it's one I don't have. So again, for listeners out there, if you have one, let me know because
if you have one, you got to tell us your story. Email me or message me or something. I'd like to, because I've heard multiple stories about this litho, and they're conflicting stories. I don't know which one is true. Very, very strange, right? No one seems to know exactly what happened with this design. Nearly nobody remembers seeing it for sale. I have a friend who says the merchant, the people that were running the merch booth, had them, but they forgot to put one up for display, so no one knew that they were for sale. And so that only a few of them sold towards the end of the show, or after the show. Who knows? I've got another friend who says that they were for sale, but they turned up late. I'm not really sure.
Well, I could tell you this much, because again, as I mentioned earlier, for most of this leg of for most of this North American 2016 shows, I was buying them on eBay, right? Because I didn't really know a lot of people at the time to ask to get me stuff, and this was no exception, right? And now, granted, I did see these on eBay, not as many as the other design, but still, I saw these on eBay. But like we talked about before, I thought it was like, especially because that tragedy had just happened, I thought it was like a fan design. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no offense to a fan design, but I was only collecting official stuff at the time, so I was like, I'm not gonna get it, right? And I really regret that because if I had known, I certainly would have picked it up. I would say there was maybe 3 or 4 on eBay, and all at the same time. And of course, by the time I realized they were legit, they were all gone, and that was it.
And never to be seen since.
Right. I do like the design. I find it interesting what they decide to do with the Guns N' Roses and the Night in This Lifetime in Orlando, almost like neon lights, kind of you know what I mean? Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it's clearly it's a design for other reasons.
Sure. Right.
And I'm not entirely sure if I'm 100% comfortable with the idea of making money off of a tragedy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I 100% believe the design was made with the purest of intentions.
Sure.
And I think it was a very bold move and a very good move to show support for the community. Very honorable. But you're still making money off of a tragedy. And who knows, again, because I don't have much information about it, maybe we're wrong. Maybe they were meant to be given out for free, you know.
Or maybe they donated all that money to charity, or who knows, right? You know,
we don't know.
Right.
And they are unnumbered, so maybe there is a chance that they were intended to be given out for free. We may never get an answer.
And that's even more surprising, actually, because of all ones that you think would be pretty easy to fake, but you never see this on like eBay or anything, right? Like, because it's not numbered, like you just said. Yet, nonetheless, I haven't seen one ever since they first showed up. Anyway, I mean, I'm not like I may miss things time to time, but I haven't heard about one.
Oh well, if anyone out there knows anything, get in touch, please.
Yeah.
And let's move on.
Yeah. New Orleans, man. This is definitely one of the top lithographs for this leg. I think pretty much everyone agrees on that.
Including the resellers?
Well, yeah, definitely.
I've heard the rumors, man. I've heard some really bad rumors about New Orleans. I heard that in New Orleans that some of the resellers got there really early, bought up a whole bunch of the shirts. I know some guy that got there really early, and there was already no shirts available.
Yeah, the shirts were hard to find for this one, for sure. I kind of wonder if, like, in the resellers, if it was just random and they just happened to take a chance, or if they knew they were going to glow in the dark and that's why they did that, because they knew it was going to be a popular item. Not really sure. But they were right. It is a popular item, very popular design, and I think, yeah, the glow in the dark aspect is part of that for sure, right? But I don't know about you, how you feel, but for me, in addition to the glow in the dark aspect of it, it's just a great design, right? It has so many New Orleans, references in it, right? And it's also it's got that black and white thing going on. Yeah, man, this is definitely a top 5, probably top 3 for me for this leg, for sure.
I think it was certainly one of the first 5 lithographs that I purchased. Again, one of the first 5 that I purchased on eBay. Again, it stood out to me as something that was probably worthwhile getting while I could, simply because it was glow in the dark. I didn't know too much about the lithographs and what the previous designs were when I first saw this, but surely a glow in the dark lithograph would not be something common. That was my thinking, so I did grab it early. But yes, killer choice to make it glow in the dark. Out of all of the venues, out of all the cities, I think that New Orleans was a good choice for glow in the dark. The only disappointment maybe is that it was printed on slightly thinner paper than usual. I can only assume it was the best choice for glow in the dark or something. Who knows? But it is that slightly thinner than the usual lithograph paper. But it's genuinely a beautiful design for me. Some people I know would prefer it if it had a little bit of color, but I don't mind it at all. For it being black and white, it works. It doesn't detract from the design for me at all. And I think I saw this. I think I saw this glow in the dark and the Sarah Ray Rocket Queen foil variant at the same time, and this was really early on in my sort of lithograph collecting history, and I just had that sneaky suspicion that they were going to be rare, and it was going to be hard to find them and snap them both up pretty early.
That's a smart move, and even at that time, I'm sure your bank account hurt a little bit after those two, right?
It wasn't too bad. I've been blessed in a way when it comes to purchasing lithographs that I don't think that there's a lithograph that I've had to purchase that really hurt the bank account or burned through the back pocket. But especially now, like you look at some of the prices for some of these lithographs now in 2020, and some of the prices that we paid back in say 2017 or so, they're looking like bargains right now.
Oh yeah, right, absolutely. You know, yeah. I mean, sorry to say, folks, but if you're looking for this one, if you do find it and it's legitimate, it's probably going to cost you a bit. Sadly, but it's just what is what it is.
Yeah.
Collectibles take on a life of their own, and
I think a lot of people need to realize that, especially now, like if you're still looking for something like this now, you're looking at a concert that was nearly 4 years ago now,
yeah, yeah.
or at least 3.5 years ago. So a lot of that's a lot of water under the bridge.
Sure. And the one thing I'm not quite sure I understand the reference to on this particular lithograph, um, the dice at the bottom. I mean, I know New Orleans does have like a casino, and there is maybe some other gambling that goes on in the city, maybe, but um, I'm not really sure the dice reference there, or if they just wanted to throw in something there and they just put dice there. I don't know. But it seems like everything else on this lithograph again, has New Orleans reference. Just the dice, I don't understand. But then again, I'm not from there, so maybe there's something I don't know. So,
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd never really I knew that the dice were there, but it never occurred to me that it didn't seem to say didn't seem to speak New Orleans.
and if the dice, not only are they there, but the arrangement of the dice is that significant in some way. Like on the left hand side you have six, on the other right hand side you have eight, like 68, or I don't know. But if anyone out there knows the answer to that, if you could let us know, that'd be great.
We could always petition to try to get in contact with the artist and see
Oh, right.
whether he might be able to answer that. The artist for this is one of the I think from memory, it's the only artist that I've never actually been in contact with, because like all the other artists are either sort of like freelance, or they've got social media accounts. But the artist for New Orleans, who has done quite a lot of the designs, he did a reasonable amount from 2016. I'm pretty sure that he's like an in-house artist for Bravado, and he just doesn't have like a social media presence. The only I think maybe the only way to get in contact with him is via Bravado. But maybe one day we'll get in contact with him and get an answer to that question.
That's pretty interesting, actually. And until the other day when we were talking, um, I didn't know that they even had in-house artists, working for them, So, but that makes sense, I guess, when you're designing a bunch of shirts for different bands and everything, and lithographs, that you might as well have inside artists, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah, definitely,
why not?
definitely. Okay, well, let's move on then. The next one is Arlington, Texas.
Yep, yep. And
Uh,
well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just about. I don't really have that much to say about it. I mean, I like the design, but I understand that some people dislike the red skull and bones. It could have been white, like if you changed the skull and bones to white. I think maybe a lot more people would have liked it even more. But I don't know. Like I'm trying to think whether I would prefer it with white bones and a white skull or not. All I know is that the red certainly does provide a contrast, a color contrast.
Uh, it absolutely does. I think, um, and again, as we always say, no offense to the artist, but this is definitely seems to be one of the least popular designs from this tour. And that, it's hard to say why, but and I don't know about you, but not the rest of it, but the skull itself, right? I get a Puzzhead vibe, like Metallica Puzzhead vibe.
Oh,
That
okay.
artist, right? Not that I'm saying that this artist was trying to rip that artist off or anything. I'm just saying that's the vibe I get. Um, but I guess in the background, I mean, is it supposed to be like a football player that got tackled and maybe like bones are broken, or? But I don't know what that blue like cloth in the background is supposed to be. You see that, right?
Yeah. Or is Is that cloth or hair? No, I'm guessing it's got to be
Right,
cloth.
right, yeah, and I think like the Texas on the bottom, that font. I think that's like a font that one of the universities down there uses, maybe, right?
Well,
Like,
it certainly screams like like Texas high school football or something.
right, right, but and I know what the logo on the helmet. Again, there's another example of part of it being covered up, like we were talking about with the other
Mm,
ones, right? Um, uh, and at first I thought, well, that's a really bizarre shaped helmet, but I think the cloth is supposed to be covering it, so like it would have shown if the cloth wasn't there, I guess, right?
right.
But yeah, you know, not for everyone, but like some people love it, some people don't, and it happens.
I haven't seen one for sale or trade for a while either. So even though it might not be one of the more popular designs, I know it's certainly one of the rarer ones.
Right, and you know what I could see happening with this design, like if they had made it like a, you ever see like from the '80s those like felt like blacklight posters, you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah,
I
yeah,
could totally see that with this design right here, right?
agreed. Yeah,
Right,
totally agree. Totally agree there.
man, but yeah, but yeah, right. I haven't seen any at all. So yeah, definitely. I guess a lot of people might like it, considering that there isn't too many for sale out there. Right. So
I also wonder, like there's a few designs out there, not too many, where the design itself is not like the ratio is not the same as the paper that it's printed on.
huh,
And I'm
right.
just wondering whether that was intentional or whether it was simply, okay, here's the design. It's not 4 by 3, but it's going to get printed on 4 by 3 ratio, 18 by 24 piece of paper stock. Um, I'm sure that they have the ability to trim the edges if necessary, but somewhere along the line they decided not to. I wonder whether that was intentional or whether the people in charge of producing it just didn't bother, or it was accidental and somebody forgot. Not quite sure, but that's also another thing that kind of struck me about the design. That I prefer having a border on nearly any design. However, when it's not an even border, like on Arlington, it kind of throws you. You sort of wonder whether it was a deliberate choice or not.
Right. And I do get that same sense looking at it, like, oh, this should have been like one of those longer, thinner ones, right, or something,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, yeah, another GNR mystery, man.
Mm.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
well, let's move on then. The next one's still in Texas, but instead of Arlington, we are in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Um, for me, I gotta say, one of my least favorite, probably my least favorite of this leg, of the entire 2016 leg. Um, one, like, I mean, I'm guessing like the GNR logo is supposed to be like Earth or something, right? And okay, you have this rocket. I understand, because Houston's where NASA is. I mean, I get the reference and all that, but um, why could I mean? And I know the space shuttle is retired, but maybe using the space shuttle would have been a better like reference here, or I don't know. Um, but and I I think this one could have been a lot better. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I'm not entirely a fan, uh, but it could be like I said, like you said, it could be just personal bias. I think I look at it, and the first thing I think is, man, the Cincinnati design would have worked better for Houston or Orlando. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like that would have been a more appropriate design for Houston. But talking aesthetically about the design, uh, yeah, the idea, it's a good idea. However, I I think that the design of of the spaceship probably could have been done a little bit better, and that might have made the whole sort of thing appealing. I don't mind the Guns N' Roses logo as a planet. I think that could work. However, the spaceship design to me looks a little too simple,
Yeah.
if that's the right word for it. Um, and yeah, it's just it doesn't really do much for me.
man. Yeah, I hear you there, man. You know.
Anyway, no point in dwelling on it too much.
Sure.
Let's
Right.
just go ahead and move on to the next design. San Francisco,
I
great
mean,
design, great
right,
design.
right.
Love the reference. Love the the subtle way that the gun seems to jut out of the design. I think we discussed that before with Cincinnati. How some designs have got these elements that bleed out, jut out of the design into the border. I think that's one very tiny reason, one of a multitude of reasons why I like the concept of having a border on a design, because it gives you that option if you want to play around with um, the depth of the design. It gives you the ability to have something jumping out at you. But yeah, it's a nice touch, I think, and again, me nitpicking, but as I've mentioned before, I'm a fan of the classic Guns N' Roses font. If it instead had, Guns N' Roses written in the classic font, it would have been nearly perfect for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I kind of wonder why they chose not to do that. Right, that's pretty, kind of weird, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it totally, you know, great reference to San Fran. Not only with Dirty Harry, but you got the Golden Gate Bridge in the background there, of course, right? And for anyone out there that doesn't know, um, Dirty Harry is a character in a series of movies, and one of those movies is the Deadpool, and GNR. All five members of GNR had a role in that movie. So if you've never seen it, check it out. Um, and so, yeah, I love that additional reference there. It's great. You know,
Great piece of trivia there.
yeah, yeah. You know,
All
um,
right. Uh,
what can be said? Great design, right?
I
Nailed it.
think I've got. I sadly got one friend who's still on the lookout for one of these. If anyone out there has a spare San Francisco litho, or may be willing to part with their San Francisco litho for the right price or the right trade, please get in touch. I've got an eager person ready and willing to trade or purchase. Yeah, it's starting. The search is starting to get long in the tooth. It's like I mentioned. It's been nearly 4 years now, at least three and a half since some of these 2016 concerts. So it's starting to get a little thin on the ground, if you know what I mean.
And for everyone out there that's searching for lithographs, whether you're searching for this one or another one, you know, persistence, man. It pays off over time. There are things that I put on my wanted list when I started my website years ago that I'm finally finding now, and so it just gotta wait sometimes, and you know, it's not fun waiting, but it'll pay off.
I
Yeah,
feel
you
like
know,
most things, as long as it's not one of those items where like only one or two or three of them exist,
right?
you just got to play the waiting game, right? Like eventually,
Yeah,
it'd be nice if it turned up tomorrow, but uh, the longer you wait, eventually I would like to think that it'll show up. I know that was the case for me. Like I didn't get into collecting the lithographs until after my hometown concert of Osaka. It started 2017, so all of the 2016 lithos I had to purchase after the fact, and there
oh
and
yeah.
there were some of those 2016 lithos that took me a while to find. There were moments where I got really, really desperate and was willing to, looking back on some of the trades I offered to get some of these lithos that I was looking for. I'm sort of glad that I got turned down because they were not, I was probably not in the right frame of mind. I was just so desperate to get them that I was willing to essentially overpay or overtrade for some of them. And I'm glad that some of these people turned me down, because eventually, whether it was 1 week or 1 month or 3 months later, I ended up getting those for a a much better price.
Nice, man. And by the way, another thing with this design, another design that's using the yellow and orange coloration going on, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
Like again, it's this a lot of warm yellows and oranges in 2016, and which is not inherently a bad thing, but you do I don't know you do sort of get a little bored of it at times, or at least I get a little bored of it at times. I like to see a little bit of variety in the color.
Oh yeah. And by the way, here's a quick little side note. A friend of mine attended this concert, and so I asked him. I was like, "Oh hey, can you get me, the," and I specifically said the show specific poster and the show specific shirt, right? And he got the shirt, but for the poster he got me like that generic tour poster with all the
Yeah.
dates on it. I was like, "Oh man, dude, right?"
I've got a friend who suffered the same fate with a friend that went to the Israel concert, the Tel Aviv concert in 2017.
Oh,
He lives in Florida, and he had a friend whose family lived in Israel, and he told them, oh, if you're going to go to the Guns N' Roses concert, get me the lithograph. And so the guy came home, like, the morning after. He texts him or messages him, and tells him, yeah, I got 4 or 5 of them for you, and sends through a photo, and it just ends up being that generic 24 by 36 tour leg poster. And he
oh
was
no.
absolutely devastated. He thought that he'd managed to get himself a limited edition lithograph, and was heartbroken when he saw when he saw the photo come through. But that's why you got to be
Uh,
specific, right? Like, not only
yeah,
that, but not everyone knows about the lithographs. There's
right,
still people,
right.
and for whatever reason, there's still people that are going to these concerts and are completely oblivious to this artwork, to the lithographs. And I know, maybe to me and to my other lithograph collecting friends, we sort of wonder, how can you zombie walk through 3.5 years or so of touring and not know that these things exist. But there are still people that they're not, they don't care about the merchandise in general, or maybe they're only going to one show, their hometown show. They're not as obsessed as some of the other fans, the diehard fans that go to multiple shows. So I guess it is a possibility that you're not aware of what you're looking for. When someone tells you, go get the poster, you don't know what to look for. So if you're planning on asking somebody to go and grab you a lithograph from one of the future shows, be specific. Give them a little bit more info, and you'll probably find that your chance of success will skyrocket.
And not that you want to be, bossy with someone that's doing you a favor, but you might want to also tell them, if they're gonna try to do this for you, then try to do it before the concert, because extremely doubtful there'll be any after the show, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
But and they might want to bring a tube with them if they let that into the show, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great idea, but I don't. Out of all the shows that I've been to, I don't remember any situation where they've ever allowed people in with a tube.
Man, it sucks, right? Yeah.
I know. I've never been to a concert where they've allowed tubes in, even the clear ones. I know there was one guy that was waiting out front of one of the European concerts with a clear tube, like one of the ones that you buy from Staples or Amazon or something, and it's the typical poster tube, but it's completely clear, so as you can at least see the contents. And they wouldn't allow him in with that either. Like he thought that bringing the clear type of poster tube would maybe be a better option, because then people can see inside and they know that there's nothing dangerous in there. But I think that maybe from a security or a safety aspect, the tube, regardless of whether it's plastic and see through or whether it's cardboard, it can still be considered a projectile, or can still be used to maybe hit someone over the head, or I don't know. So they don't usually let them in.
I guess that must be the thing, like maybe hitting people with it. That's the only thing I can think of, right? But yeah, it's Unfortunate, but
You
it
would
is what
think
it
you would
is.
think the alternative, like the alternative, would be for them to sell poster tubes at the merchandise booth, right? Like
And
that.
I know that Metallica has done that for some shows, right?
Well,
At
they did
least,
that.
right?
I know that they did that for the first Los Angeles show at the Forum in 2017. They
Oh,
they sold
nice.
they sold good quality U-line poster tubes at the merchandise booth, but like I can't remember them ever selling them at any other concert. You know that like what a great
Yeah.
idea! Like you finally after 2 years of touring, or a year and a half of touring, you finally realize to sell a poster tube, and I think they were like $5 or whatever. So they're obviously making a slight profit off of it. Here's another avenue for them to make money off of fans, but it's an avenue that fans are willing to go ahead with, because that's something that the lithograph collectors want. Even if it's paying $5 for a $2 tube, you're going to go with that because that's an awesome idea. But then they didn't decide to put that into action as a regular thing. It was only ever at that Los Angeles 2017 concert.
And maybe it's up to each venue to make their own like security decisions. I guess that could be it too. Hard to know. Um, and then some places or some I don't know if it's the venue or the band or whatever, but like the Metallica show I went to in Seattle. So I go inside and I parked my car at the parking garage like at the venue, right? So it's very close by. But I don't want to carry all the stuff I'm going to get around with me at the show, right? And so I go in, I buy stuff, right? And then I'm going out to go to my car. They're like, oh, there's no reentry. And don't get me wrong, I can understand like, okay, yeah, I can't go on the VIP line again. I have to go in the regular line with everyone else, right? That's fine with me. I don't care if I have to wait in the big line with everyone else. But no, there's no reentry at all if you leave.
Mm.
I was like, that's stupid, man. Like,
Like
I,
I can also like I've been to some of the festivals, and obviously when it's like a multi-day festival, you have to allow re-entry.
true,
And
right,
so I can
right.
understand that there being a difference between that and, okay, if it's a multi-day festival, you can do re-entry, but for like a one-time event, no re-entry. Okay, fair's fair. I understand that. Maybe it's the logistics of the security. You want all of your security maybe to focus on checking people coming in, and then an hour later or whatever, you can essentially, or halfway through the show, you can start focusing on people, checking people on their way out, right?
Right,
And that
right.
was actually something that was told to me by a security in Europe. There was a guy that was one of my friends was going to the concert with his father, and his father needed like heart medication, and he just so happened to forget the heart medication in the car, in the parking lot, and he didn't need the heart medication, but it was one of those things where like really you should bring it with you, and they told him that. And they'd only realized that they'd forgotten the heart medication as soon as they'd gone through the gates. And so you've got 30,000, 40,000 people trying to go in through the gates, and they've gone back to the security guard and said, oh, can my father go back to the parking lot and grab his heart medication in the car? And at first they said no, no reentry, and then he's after a little bit of discussion, they were like, okay, we'll let you through just this once. However, you have to wait about an hour. Like right now, we've just got like 40,000 people coming in through the gates. Nearly all of the gates are set up to allow people to come in. None of the gates are set up to let people out. So wait till most of these people are in, then we can sort of change one of these gates into like an outway, and then you can go through that. And so that I can also understand that, like, if your security is set up to focus on letting in as many people as quickly as possible, it might not necessarily allow you to go out straight away, but just being draconian about not allowing people re-entry, I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be a better solution.
I think so too. And well, I just have to keep hoping, I guess.
I should actually point out too the Netherlands concert in 2018 allowed, or was it 2018 or 2017? It was a 1 day concert, and they allowed re-entry. Like
Wow,
it
nice.
was,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like so, it's obvious. Yeah, I'm trying to remember whether it was Nijmegen in 2017 or in 2018, but one of those. It was, well, it may have been both, but because they were both at the same venue. But certainly at one of them, they did allow re-entry. So
And,
if
and
they
that,
can do it at one, if they can do it at one venue, surely there's got to be a way to do it at others.
right, and let me be clear about what I'm saying, at least with my viewpoint on reentry. Yes, I fully understand that I'll have to empty my pockets again and get wanted again. I'm not saying to not do that, like, you know what I mean? I just don't know, like, if I'm willing to do the whole security thing again, I don't see the problem, But again, I don't know all the details. Maybe there's a very valid reason for it, and that's
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, well,
I'm sure that there's a reason for it, but I think if they can allow re-entry in some other similar situations,
right,
I find it hard to justify being so draconian with this situation, if you know what I mean.
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We've got a handful more left to go, and some of these are really good. Some One of these is one of my personal favorites. The first one is, I guess, your neck of the woods, Seattle.
Yeah, and this was the third show of this leg that I attended. And thankfully, I remember, being online. I got the merch for this show at an outdoor merchandise tent. Right? There might have been indoor ones. I can't remember if I saw any or not, but um, and I remember being online with like I had a tube. I think with this show I went back to my car and dropped everything off and came back again, for this one, right? But I wouldn't call it re-entry because we weren't really like in the venue yet, right? But I remember being online with like a tube in my hand, and like everyone kind of giving me weird looks, and I remember people in front of me at online, and when everything opened and they started selling stuff, no one was asking for the poster. I was really shocked.
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't get me wrong. I understand that maybe not everyone likes the design or whatever, but I thought maybe there'd be some of those resellers there trying to get like 50 or whatever, right? But I didn't see any of that going on,
That's really interesting because
which was great, right?
yeah, oh, it's great, but it's also shocking because I've heard from multiple people that earlier on, sort of around Cincinnati to Atlanta, around that sort of period in the leg was around the time when people were starting to realize how collectible the posters were, and the resellers started to get really really serious. So to hear something so to hear that at a concert so late in the tour leg was still not being attacked by the resellers, is refreshing and certainly surprising.
Right, and I think what it might have been. I think like a lot of people when they first look at this design, they're like, But I think this is a good example of design that's grown on people over time, and ends up being one of the harder ones to find actually, right? Uh, and I liked it right off the bat. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not. I mean, I like to watch sports, but I'm not like a huge sports guy. But I understand the reference to the Supersonics and Seattle and everything, and the skyline of Seattle in the background, of course, and all that. But again, sometimes it's a very simple design doesn't work. Sometimes it totally works, and in my opinion, it works in this case very well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I love it deeply because, like you said, you don't you may not necessarily be a sports fan or a basketball fan. You might not even be a Seattle fan. However, for me, and I'm certainly not a fan of the Supersonics. I'm not a fan of Seattle sports in general. I'm not generally a fan of the color scheme of green and yellow or green and gold or whatever the official colors of the Supersonics was. But it, I love references and parody designs like this. It's just super super smart. You don't have to be a fan of the color scheme or the fan of the sports franchise to be able to appreciate this this collaboration of ideas, this mix between a local reference and the band.
Right.
And again, I'm not a fan of the colors, but it's nice to see a big change in color palette from time to time.
Absolutely, it is, and this is another. This is a good example of a concert where the shirt was a different color for GNR. It wasn't the usual black. It's like a kind of like a dark blue,
Oh,
with the number,
really?
and it
Okay,
has
I
the
didn't
number
know that.
12 on the background. And the number 12, not just because it's August 12th, but 12 means like the 12th fan for like the Seattle Seahawks, because there's 11
Oh,
guys on the field,
yeah,
and so
okay.
the 12th player is the fans, so that's why they go with number 12 on the back of the shirt, right? Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty cool shirt actually,
It's
right?
funny. It's funny that you mentioned that it's blue because if I had to choose a color palette that I dislike more than green and yellow, it would probably be green and blue. So so there's even less chance that I would have purchased the shirt. But so be it. I nevertheless the poster itself, uh, the willingness to change the color palette up, that's great. I love that. And I should also mention that the rumor is that that Duff had a hand in suggesting this as a theme.
Oh,
Him
nice.
being obviously from Seattle, I'm been led to believe that he had suggested that maybe using a local sports franchise would be a decent basis for a lithograph theme.
That's really cool, actually. It's nice to see like the band members taking interest themselves sometimes. And this is another good example in this case, and I don't think I'm spilling any secrets here or anything. But the GNR fan club, um, and the website for the forum gunsnroses.com, right? Um, you know, I totally understand the fan club has a lot of issues, and we could talk all day about that. But one cool thing about the fan club, and I can't explain how I got it, but one day a poster tube shows up at my door, right? From Live Nation or Ticketmaster, one of them, I can't remember, right? And someone sent me this lithograph and like a really low number, like number 17 or something, or 11 or whatever it was, for something that I did on the forum. I don't know what, because I certainly don't post as much as a lot of other people do, but I guess I was just posting in the right thread at the right time, or I never found out what I did to get it, but just goes to show that sometimes if you hang out on that, I know the fan club's not perfect, but there are some cool things that to do once in a while, and this was one of them for me anyway. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting story. I'm now wondering whether there's any chance that the person who decided to send that to you might be listening. If you are listening, please again, be one of the people to get in touch with us. I'm sure that Tim would love to hear from you and get the chance to thank you personally.
Yeah, that would be awesome, And
I
I don't know
really,
if it
I
was
really am wondering what it was that you did.
right, and I don't know if it was like random that they sent me this design, or if they sent me this design because I live in Seattle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
But
see, that's another question that I would like. That was the first thing that I thought of when you said that happened. Like I thought, well, did they choose that because you're in Seattle, or is it because what you did had something to do with Seattle, or did you complain that you didn't get the litho, or what?
right,
What was the
right.
reason? Tell us.
I
So
wish I could remember. I could, you know, it's funny because sometimes even I work for my job, I'll get like once in a while you'll get like an award, like a cash award, so like there'll be extra money in your paycheck, right? But then they don't tell you like what you did to get it, which is don't get me wrong, I'm happy for the extra money, but it's like I'd like to know what I did to get
you'd
it,
like
right?
you'd like to
But,
know what you did so as you can do it again, right?
right, right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh
Anyway,
man.
yeah, it's one of my favorite designs. I really like it, and it's also one of the rarer lithographs from 2016. I know that when I grabbed mine, it was I think it was a long, long time before another one showed up. I think there was a stage where a whole bunch of people were looking for Seattle and San Francisco, and neither of them showed up on eBay or any of the sort of trading sites or fan forums for a long, long time. So if you want one, yeah, be patient. I haven't seen one for a while, but they do still occasionally pop up.
Yeah, man.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one then. We're almost finished. It's it feels like it's been a long time coming, but we are starting to get to the end of this tour leg. The next one we have is Glendale, Arizona. I don't have that much to say on this litho. I think it is one of the designs that you mentioned, like you mentioned before. There's some designs that certainly look better in person, and I think it's a good looking design, but it looks even better and the colors pop even more in person. It's a really nice use of negative space, and I personally love the change in color palette. To me, I don't know. Like I know that I mentioned my a slight disdain for yellow and orange, but this is like a different. This is almost like a vermilion, right? Like it's a little bit more of a red,
Right.
and just
Right.
that shift in color palette does make it a little bit more appealing to me. So yeah, it's it doesn't blow me out of the water, but I like it.
Right. This one, like you said, it's definitely you know different colors that are usually used for like a GNR design, right? It's also a good one that has like, because I know some people don't like the dark lithos and some people don't like the light lithos. This is a kind of a good example of a mix of dark and light, and what a great way to incorporate like the local kind of art design. You know what I mean? Like the
Mm.
Southwest kind of like art work into this particular lithograph. I think that's really great. They did a really good job with that. Um, and what I really like about this one, and I'd love to see like a larger design of it, like you see the GNR logo in the bottom corners there. It's just kind of cool, like an orange background. I'm like, it's pretty neat actually.
I
I
think if you if you're one of the people that buys or at least goes to the official Guns N' Roses merchandise website from time to time, you'll see that they pump out some seasonal T-shirts, and not in addition to those seasonal T-shirts, they also pump out the occasional anti-cancer T-shirts, and they've had these
right,
different anti-cancer shirts depending on the type of cancer in different colors. And I actually think that's pretty cool. Like just to see that traditional Guns N' Roses bullet logo in, I guess, different colorways. It's a refreshing feeling to see it from time to time.
absolutely, man. And another story for me for this lithograph is that this is probably the lithograph of all the lithographs I have for Guns N' Roses. This is the one I have in the worst condition because of the way the person mailed it. And I think we'll get into talking about that at another episode. But just a real quick thing: if you guys mail lithographs, please be careful. That's all I'm gonna say for now. I think we'll talk more about it at another time. But
Oh yeah, I can definitely see us talking about how to care for lithos and how to send lithos. Yeah, we can do maybe not a whole episode on that, but
right.
we can definitely assign a large period of time to discussing that, because boy, oh boy, do I have some opinions on that matter.
Man.
I think don't we all? I think it comes with the
Yeah.
territory, right? Eventually, once you get to the point where you're collecting a significant amount of these lithographs, eventually you're going to encounter that sort of situation where either someone has cared for the lithograph or packed the lithograph very poorly, and it breaks your heart to see something that's limited edition essentially get thrown in the trash.
Oh man, does it ever?
So.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. Now, this is the next three Yeah, I sort of look at the next three, the SoCal trilogy as we've sort of come to know them. I sort of look at them as a group. I don't know whether there's anything that you want to talk about specifically with this next one, this Los Angeles Night One. But for me, I've always looked at them, the Los Angeles Night One, Los Angeles Night Two, and San Diego, the Surfer lithograph. I've always looked at them as a trilogy, because that this was essentially the reason why I ended up, collecting all of the lithographs. These these three designs were the designs that originally won me over. I traded for the San Diego, and then realized after trading for it that San Diego was part of a trilogy. There was a guy that wanted one of the Japanese lithographs that I had, and I originally was going to just charge him cost price for the Japanese lithograph. However, he said that he had the San Diego Surfer laying around, and that if I wanted, he'd be happy to trade for that instead. And that seemed like a more not only a more reasonable alternative, but it also meant that PayPal would not get their little claws into me for a few bucks. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I got the San Diego lithograph, San Diego Surfer, found the other two on eBay and bought them, and yeah, yikes, the rest is history, I suppose.
Yes, it is.
Because it all snowballed from there. Yeah, it's not much more I can say on the matter. What do you think? Is there anything that you want to say specifically about this Los Angeles skater design?
Well, I kind of wonder if if Bueller, and you might be able to talk more about this from having messaged with him or talked with him time to time, but if he kind of knew about the band and the band members, or if this is just a totally accidental reference, because of course, as we all know, at the very least, Izzy was, maybe still is, a skateboarder, so I kind of wonder if they purposely did that, or if it was just coincidental, right? But I think that's really cool that worked out that way anyway, regardless of the reasoning for it. So yeah, no, I just like you're right, these are all, you can tell from the coloration and the design that these are totally a trilogy, right? And uh he nailed it, man. This is maybe
He did.
one of
He
his
did.
best stuff, right?
I don't know how to put into words exactly the style that he uses for some of his artwork. There's this, I don't know, it almost feels like a little bit of a sketch illustration, especially the way that he does his sunset, and
Yeah.
it just I know I think it works really really well, and to me there's the times where a lithograph design has come out and we weren't sure at the time who the artist was. It's that the way that he does his sunset that sort of stands out to me, and I can sort of pick, hey, that certainly looks like an Arian Bueller design, and I love it. I like the theme. I like that it's part of a trilogy. I like the colors. There's not much that I could say about it that I don't like.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. Right.
So yeah, let's. So that's part one of the trilogy. Let's move on to part two. The first part was to do with skateboarding. Second part, Los Angeles Night Two. We've got the BMX theme, and to me, this is probably my favorite of the three. When I was a little kid, I used to be into BMX huge. I did track racing. I did freestyle. I would spend weekends. I remember weekends buying lumber, following instructions on how to make my own quarter pipe,
That's
little
cool, man.
jumps and things like that. I wore out my copy of of Rad on VHS. I've probably watched that movie 1,000 times, maybe more, and that's not an exaggeration. BMX was a really, really big part of my life when I was a kid. So it was really, really cool to see it on display in this design. I also want to point out, and I forgot to mention it when we were looking back at night one. Again, I like the way that Arian Bueller does roses, or incorporates roses into his designs. If people who are listening want to just quickly flick back to Los Angeles Night One, you'll see that there's roses, individual roses on the ground, and then in this design, Night Two, you've got the clouds in the shape of roses, and I don't know, there's something about the way that he incorporates roses into his designs that really works for me. I think that he does it in a classy way, and I can't get enough of it.
Right, it's a really cool, like, subtle reference to the roses and the clouds there and everything. And what I really like, and I don't know how the hell I never noticed this before, but like the border there is like a bike chain, right?
Yeah,
That's cool, man, right? And I'm sorry.
Oh, I also like that if you look at the skyline of L.A., one of the
Yep.
buildings
The buildings.
is a gun.
That's really cool, right? I mean, like such a little subtle thing that he added, which is great. Totally works. And again, I don't know if it's just coincidental or if it's a nod to Slash, because he was definitely into BMX biking, and it still is maybe as an adult, but definitely was when he was younger as well. So again, just it might be coincidental, it may be intentional, but either way, it's great. Um, and yeah, it's just very brilliant. Very very cool. Another not another grand slam.
Masterpiece. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right. Just really
I
is.
think also like the more I look at it as well, I think another reason why maybe I prefer the BMX design over the others is that it's a lot brighter when you've got that bright blue background compared to the sunsets in the two other designs. I think it makes the design pop a little bit, especially in contrast to the the yellowy orangey red that's used in the design.
Yeah, and I think because of that, it would really be quite visually pleasing to frame all three of these maybe together in one frame, and with this one obviously in the middle, and have the darker ones on the other side.
Yeah.
I think that would work out really well.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't framed any of mine, as they're all sitting in but if I ever do, maybe I'll think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last of the trilogy then. We've got San Diego Surfer. In hindsight, like seeing this in person, it's a little bit darker than the other two. I don't know whether it was like intentionally meant to be like that, or whether it might just be the way that it was printed. I'm guessing maybe it's just the design, because when I look at it now, the ocean and the wave is almost predominantly black. The sky is predominantly the dark red. I think maybe it's just inherently a darker design than the other two. But you can clearly see that these three were done as a trilogy in a really, really, really good way. And again, there's the roses in the design. I can't get enough of it. I really like it. I'm not so much of a fan of the font used for Guns N' Roses. However, considering that it's meant to be like a surfing theme, I feel like it's appropriate. So it's not my favorite font or typeface, but it's probably the right way to go for something like this trilogy.
And I'm not sure I would have liked it if it was just as is, but the fact that he made it like 3D-ish or whatever, if I can make up a word right there, right? With the word 3D-ish. But right, I think that's why that works for me there. I'm not sure what like the claws are referencing here, maybe it's just like a really dangerous surf down there. I don't know. Like, but you can see how the waves. There's like claws,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
I
wondering
mean,
whether that I don't know whether that's death or something that's trying to grab him, or I don't know.
right, right. And then in the background, you got the two guns in the city skyline again. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool, right?
very cool, very cool.
And the sunsets are great because I who doesn't love a good sunset in that time of day? The golden light, whatever they call that time of day when the sun's going down, and yeah, and a great reference for San Diego with the surfing, and
Without a doubt.
I mean, once again, Arian Bueller nails it again.
I want
Yeah.
to point out also, not specifically with the lithograph, but with the associated T-shirt. I've had a few people mistakenly think, for the people that purchased the T-shirt for San Diego, there are some people that are mistaken that the design on the back of the T-shirt, which although it looks very, 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 very much like a hockey puck, it's not a hockey puck. It's surf wax.
Yep,
It's
yep.
it's
Hockey
which
puck.
it's don't get me wrong. If you're not a surfer, and I'm not a surfer, it may not necessarily be immediately obvious. But yeah, it's not a hockey puck, even though they do have a hockey team in Southern California. Yeah, it's meant to be surf wax.
And an interesting little side note, kind of related to what we're talking about right now, for the Hawaii show that they did that we went to, right? They had like promo surf wax for GNR, you
Yes,
know, and I managed to get my hands on a few of those, right? And it's really cool, and it smells amazing, right?
I got one myself, but I'll be the first to admit I had to ask what the hell is this soap?
Right.
Like
I thought it was so too. I thought
yeah,
it was
because
good.
I mean, unlike the surf wax design that's on the back of the San Diego shirt, which is obviously circular and looks very much like a hockey puck, the surf wax that they gave out as a promo item in Honolulu is obviously shaped like a bar of soap, which
Yep.
is what I first thought it was, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Like that's a weird choice of product to create for Honolulu, and then yeah, somebody pointed out to me that obviously you're not a surfer because that's wax, you idiot.
Well, because especially because of the smell of it too. That's why I thought it was soap, right? Because
Yeah,
why would surf wax be fragrant? There's no need to make it fragrant, right? I mean,
right,
it's
right.
function over form, right? So like, um, but yeah, it's pretty interesting, man.
And
Yeah.
and you would know more than anybody else that occasionally Guns N' Roses or the merchandising arm for Guns N' Roses will occasionally bring out the some head scratching items.
Yeah.
Like for example, one of the VIP items that I got in Kuala Lumpur in on the Asia 2018 leg was a little Metro card, like a card that had I think maybe the local equivalent of like $5 or $10 worth of credit that you could use when using public transport in Kuala Lumpur. It was a Guns N' Roses branded Metro card,
How
and
strange. Yeah.
like okay, like that's kind of I mean okay, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's nice that they've gone to that effort, but like how out of nowhere, right? Like
Yeah.
you could list 100 different items that you could produce in as a decent or common sense item to provide as a VIP gift with for the first time that the Guns N' Roses has visited the country or whatever or I can't even think whether they'd ever gone to Malaysia before. But you know, I don't think that I don't think a Metro card is going to make the top 100, right? Like,
Right. Right.
so it
And
was really really strange, and so if they're going to make a Metro card that is going to be almost useless to a large percentage of fans, then the idea of them making a bar of Guns N' Roses soap is not out of the ordinary. Like
right.
that
Right.
that's not going to stand out as something that's totally not in the realm of possibility.
Not at all. Right. Exactly. And yeah, they've made some bizarre. In fact, for the speaking of like cards, it was for the Tokyo '92 shows, right? They did like back in the day of calling cards. That's a thing of the past, but they did
Yeah.
like GNR calling cards. And then one of them had a Use Your Illusion 1 design, one of them had a Use Your Illusion 2 coloration design on it. But yeah, very weird.
Very
You
weird.
know.
Very weird. All right. Well, that's trilogy, and now I guess we're on to the last one. Really, technically,
I
the
don't know if you wanted to
last.
talk about like one by one, or do you want to talk about all four at the same time, or
Let's talk about them all at once, really, because technically speaking, only one of them is really official because
right?
uh, really only one design. The variants weren't sold at the concert. It was just the standard concert design of San Diego Rocket Queen that was sold at the venue. The others were only available via the artist's online Etsy page. So let's just go ahead. I mean, it's really all the same design anyway. So let's just discuss them all as a whole. I I like the design, but again, without wanting to sound like a broken record, I would have preferred the traditional Guns N' Roses font at the
Oh,
top.
yep.
Everything else about it, I think, is kind of cool. And as beautiful as the foil version is in real life, I am adamantly against variants. I cannot stress enough how much I hate fundamentally the concept of variant posters, and I am so happy that Guns N' Roses has not done variants. Like the decision to have variants of this design was clearly just an artist's choice. But if I think I only just recently mentioned this on one of the either Guns N' Roses forums or groups. If Guns N' Roses ever decided to do variants, I'm gonna burn the whole thing down. Like I would snap because I'm just so inherently against the idea of variants. I'm not a fan.
Right, right. Well, and I can understand that because, especially as collectors, it would drive us almost bonkers to try to track down all of it, and I really feel for any of you who are looking for the purple or the foil one because it wasn't easy to track down some of those even at the time, especially the foil one, which there's only 10 of, and so, but like I said earlier, hey, keep on looking because you never know. But I love the design. I think there's so much going on, especially in the tattoos. There's a lot of different references, to things.
Yeah, definitely.
You got that hat that kind of Axl used to wear at some shows, in concert and everything. Uh, and even like the clothes that she's wearing and like the little like glove on one hand, it's kind of like a little bit of like a 80s reference from that time of like 86, 87, 88. Um, Personally, like if we're gonna include all the variants for a moment in this discussion, um, I understand that the foil one is the rarest, obviously, but I prefer the purple one of all of them. Um, but yeah, it is kind of weird how this is like the only artist that did this, out of all the artists that they've used, But uh, I'm happy I was able to get ahead on all of them.
I
It really worked
I
out.
can't remember whether I ever got an answer to it or not, but someone did ask me whether the artist actually had permission to do the variants,
Oh,
because there's other artists that say that you're not supposed to do that, or maybe, or more accurately, that their particular agreement was that they wouldn't do that, or they weren't allowed to do that. And so, to like you said, to just have that one artist do it and pump out variants, and not have anyone else do it seems a little bit strange. And one could argue that maybe she wasn't allowed to do it, and maybe that's why she hasn't been given another chance to do another design. But that's just speculation. There's a lot of artists that have done a local concert, but then not done any other designs. There's Jimbo Phillips, who did Sacramento in 2017, and he's done a local design, and he's clearly not done any designs since then. I don't think that he's in the doghouse or anything like that. I think there's quite a few artists that have been requested to do a local design, and then that's it. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but nevertheless, I'm very, very happy that Guns N' Roses themselves have not decided to do any variants. I'm a bit of a stickler for the artist's original vision, that they that when an artist designs something, they would imagine that they've got a particular color in mind, and to just pump out the same design with different colors just doesn't stick with me. It doesn't stick right with me.
Right.
I do know. With that being said, I do know that there was there's some designs that not necessarily Guns N' Roses, but other bands where the designs are done deliberately with the concept of pumping it out in multiple colors. So maybe my particular opinion doesn't have any legs to stand on, but at the very least, as long as it doesn't make things painfully difficult for the fans to collect, I think it's beneficial to the people who are handing out their hard-earned money and paying for the stuff at the end of the day.
Well, speaking of that, and for anyone who's listening is interested, I'm on the artist Etsy page right now, and according to what I'm seeing, the orange variant and apparently the purple variant is still available. The prices seem to have gone up from what they were back then. Unfortunately, the foil one is still sold out, so don't get too excited.
The ones that are available, are they listed as artist prints? Because I did notice a while back that she was still selling some of the variants. However, like you said, they were more expensive, but they were listed as artist prints.
Right. It does say that in the notes here, and it says the remaining posters are low numbers, right? Like in the 2 to 16 range. Granted, there was only 20 purple ones anyway, so it can't be too high of a number. But I guess that means that the orange ones, I guess there must be low numbers of those. A low numbered edition of those available as well right now.
Yeah.
It could be like maybe she hasn't updated her website. I don't know. Maybe none of these are available anymore. But just saying, if you guys are interested, and if you're willing to pay a certain price, you might be able to get them from the artist still.
Sure.
And the artist is really cool. She includes a bunch of stickers and crap when she sends it to you. She packs it really well, which is great to see. So if you guys are interested, I would go get it.
Sure. And in response to what you said about purple, the purple variant being your particular favorite, I would go with the foil myself, only because I feel like the paper for the orange variant and the purple variant, they're kind of faded, like they're kind of muted oranges and purples.
Right. Yes.
And
yep.
so it just gives the impression that the print is a little bit less vibrant to me, whereas obviously the foil is the foil, and it does jump out at you as very flashy. I'm not usually a fan of foil to begin with. I think that there's a time and place for it, and just using foil for foil's sake is not necessarily a good reason. But it does, at least it does look nice. I was very, very fortunate to grab a foil. Again, very, very early in my litho collecting career. I just had a feeling that it was something that maybe I might want to grab while I could. It didn't, like I remember when I purchased it on eBay from someone, and I saw that it was out of 10, and I didn't need to know too much of how it all worked to realize, well, regardless of how popular it is, if there's only 10 of them, it's not exactly going to be easy to find. I better grab this while I can, and I did.
Nice.
And that was one of the smartest moves I ever made when it came to collecting lithos.
Yeah, like I think like if I remember correctly, I got the orange and the purple one from her site, but by the time I was there, the foil one was gone. So yeah, I had to go to the bay to get mine as well, right?
Do you remember? I'm just curious because clearly, this all happened long before I got involved, and I certainly didn't purchase any of them directly from the artist's website. Do you remember how much the foil went for originally? How much the original cost of it was?
That's a great question, right? And sadly, I do not. But yeah, I wonder if there's like a way. I mean, of course, we could try reaching out to the artist directly, but if there's a way to find out what they would have sold for back then,
Well,
I would say I want to
we
say
can
it was
always
like,
ask. We can always ask the people that are listening, if just in case one of the
yeah,
other
right,
the other 8 people that have one, if the other one of the other 8 people remember what they paid for when purchasing their foil directly from the artist's website, drop me an email. I would be very curious because I have no idea whatsoever. I clearly purchased mine off of eBay, and I'm sure that the person that I purchased it off made a healthy profit off of it, which is fine by me. But I'm just out of pure curiosity, I'd like to know how much he would have purchased it for.
right, and I want to say like maybe 150 or something, but it could be way wrong about that. But and also, by the way, and no offense to you, Rich, or to your scanner, but as we've mentioned, I think a few times before, or maybe it was just you and I talking, maybe it wasn't the podcast, but when you scan certain things, it doesn't capture everything, as well as we would like. So if you guys want to see what the foil like what it really looks like in certain light, go to the artist's website. Even though the foil is no longer available, there is a picture of it. You can see the foil really shine in the picture that she has there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'll be I have to admit that all of these designs that I put up on my website have been personal scans. I did that. I made that choice deliberately because I wanted people to be able to see exactly what the final result was compared to what ideally the original artist or Guns N' Roses had originally intended, because then at least it helps people determine whether they want to go searching for the design themselves. If they know exactly what it's going to look like in real life, then that'll be a better representation than the ideal JPEG format image from say the Guns N' Roses Instagram website. However, that being said, the scanner that I use, well, I don't think it's my scanner. I think all scanners don't pick up foil at all. So
Yeah.
it was impossible for me to scan the foil version as is. I actually had to play around with it in Adobe Photoshop. I ended up having to use the scan from either the orange or the purple variant, and essentially modify it so as to make it uh, appear like the foil. So it's everything that isn't foil in the foil picture is the actual original foil. Is the original scan of the original foil print, but anything that's sort of like multicolored, I had to play around with that to essentially bring it out, because I think when I scanned it in the scanner, all of the reflective foil areas just turned out white, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It
So
must have been hard. Yeah. You got to do the best you can do, and don't wrong. Thank you for scanning all of them, and you did a great job. Yeah.
thank you, thank you. It actually didn't take as long as I really thought. Like when I did it, I think it was the end of 2018. I really thought that it would take a long time, but I think I pumped it out fairly, probably in a quarter of the time that I estimated that it would. It was really only the cleaning up the scans and getting them straight and vertical. That took a bit of time, but it was something that I wanted to do just myself. I'm obsessive enough to collect them that I would be obsessive enough to want to do everything correctly. And if the additional results involve providing a service to other fans or other collectors, helping them see what other designs are out there that they may not necessarily have been able to get their hands on, or providing information regarding the artist that was involved in making the designs or whatever. If my website has been a resource in any way whatsoever, that makes me happy. The website was never intended to be commercial in any way. I've got no advertising on it. It never will have advertising on it. I don't make any money off of the website. In fact, it costs me a few bucks a year to host it and to own the domain name. And I'm more than happy to foot the bill because I use the website myself. I constantly go on the website to check out some of the designs, even if the real thing might be in the same room as me. Sometimes it's just easier to bring up the website, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that it's there. I'm hoping that a lot of people benefit from it as much as I do.
Nice, man. Yeah.
So I think that's we've managed to wrap up all of the 2016 lithos. We've gone through all of them one by one, and I don't know about you, Tim, but that was an experience. That was It took longer than I expected, but I think that we touched upon some good topics there. Not just the designs themselves, but we've managed to approach a few related topics that I think other fans and other collectors would also be interested in.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was amazing to me how much we can go on about these lithographs, and sometimes when we were talking about doing this podcast, I thought about, oh, maybe we should have a few other people that we know in on this, but and no offense to them, but if we just had any more people, this would just be much longer. And
Yeah. I think if we had more people involved, we might have a whole season, right? That
right?
Might end up being on Netflix or something, right?
Right.
But
each episode just talking about one lithograph at a time. Right?
Well, if we ever get that successful, if it ever gets that popular, that we'll start all over again and just go through them one by one, and we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about until the cows come home.
Right.
But
right.
I'm not too sure. See, that's the thing. I know that you and we've certainly enjoyed this first foray into podcasts. I'm hoping that the people that are listening at home, I'm really hoping that they find it even slightly as interesting as we have. Otherwise, I think we may just be doing this for our own entertainment.
I think so sometimes, right? But hey, that's fine, man.
Yeah,
I'm
Look,
glad to
I
spend
had
time
fun.
with you, man.
Yeah. Now, before I decided to do this, before we started recording this, we opened up the floor, so to speak, to some other fans to see whether they had any questions, any topics related to the 2016 lithos that they wanted us to discuss. So I just thought we'd quickly go through some of those questions and some of those topics, and then we can probably start to bring this first episode to an end. The first thing I wanted to talk about specifically is relating to the 2016 lithos is, I guess, the current pricing and availability of these 2016 lithos. I think that we approached the subject very briefly earlier in the episode, where we mentioned that some of these lithographs are going on nearly 4 years old, and the availability for a lot of them has dried up in recent years. I know that back in 2017, me trying to go through and fill out my back catalog of 2016 lithos, it certainly took me a while. Even back in 2017, there was a lot of them that it took a lot of patience and for me to finally find some of them, to be able to trade for them or to be able to purchase them. They weren't all still sitting around on eBay or on forums waiting to be purchased. It certainly was a bit of an ordeal waiting for some of them to rear their ugly heads. However, that was back in 2017. There were they were difficult to find back then, and I can only imagine that they've become harder and harder over the past couple of years to find, and probably in correlation to that, the prices have gone up and up over time as well. Some of these 2016 lithos are still available you'll find them regularly listed on eBay or on the Guns N' Roses forums. However, a lot of them, you really have to be lucky enough to be searching at the right time, because they may pop up and get purchased fairly quickly. Of course, depending on the prices. The prices these days for some of these 2016 lithos, I would probably hazard a guess that there's obviously some that are relatively cheap because they're made in large volumes, or like say the first two Las Vegas lithos,
Right.
or others that are just relatively large volume but not particularly popular. So they hang out on eBay for either a long time or they show up on eBay regularly. And then on the flip side, you've got a handful that are very expensive, and they may show up very rarely or almost not at all. Taking away those extremes, I would probably hazard a guess that the ballpark figure for a lot of these 2016 lithos, roughly is maybe around $250 to $300 as of early 2020. What's your take on that? Do you think that's too high or appropriate or what?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And just so everyone's clear, we're talking about prices, for like, official, legitimate lithographs. There's other ones out there that you probably have all seen, and you probably
Very
know who.
sketchy. Yeah, I'm not. I
Right,
don't want to. I don't
right,
want to. I think we all know the ones that we're talking about, and I don't want to
right,
give that particular person any credit. So
right.
he or she will remain nameless from now on. But I think we all know what we're talking about. Yeah, we're definitely talking about 100% authentic versions of these lithographs. Yeah.
And and yeah, I would say I think that's pretty accurate, um, for for an average of the prices of what things are going for right now. And sometimes it's hard to tell because like of course private deals, no one really advertises the prices, right, that they pay for things, and sometimes on eBay, something is sold, but it's sold like outside of eBay, so that the seller will just end the listing, right? So you won't
Right.
know how much it's sold for. But I would say that's pretty accurate. And by the way, for anyone out there searching for like um, the high dollar ones from this leg, like Cincinnati, for example, there was just one on eBay. It's not there anymore, so don't get too excited. But it was there recently. So, like I said earlier, just keep on searching, and it will come up. Right? So chin up, be patient, um, and save up.
Yeah,
And
that's probably
you know,
that's almost as important as being patient is, when they do pop up, you're probably going to have to grin and bear it when it comes to the prices, because beggars can't be choosers, right? If you're really obsessed uh, and you really, really want some of these designs, you may not have the flexibility uh, to to get it for the price that you'd ideally want to pay.
Right.
You may have to pay more than you're comfortable with, regardless of whether that particular price is a good price or not. There's there is one particular 2016 litho that was being discussed this week, that somebody said that they were looking for one particular lithograph, and it just so happened that lithograph was on uh, eBay for like $350 or so, or 325 or something along those lines, and he balked at the idea, and he said that was way too much. And a lot of people chimed in saying, well, this is a reason, like, this is a good litho from 2016 that doesn't show up all too often anymore. That's not an unreasonable price. Like, that's probably a good price. That's a fair price. So you've got to you got to look at it from a different perspective. It may hurt a little bit to pay some of these prices, but if you really want them, if like I know some people that they've seen a lithograph that they're absolutely desperate to get their hands on, and they'll be putting in best offers and negotiating for a price that might be $25 or $50 cheaper than the buy it now price. And I'm thinking to myself, if you really want it that much, are you really going to lose the opportunity to get one, and
Right.
end your 3 year or 4 year long pain just to save $25 or $50? I'm not quite sure I understand how people approach some of these situations. Like, either they, I don't know, either they're really, really, really tight on money, and if they are, then maybe no matter how much you like these designs, maybe you shouldn't be looking at purchasing them, or they're just not looking at it in the right light. Like, these are not designs that necessarily show up with any regularity. With each lithograph that shows up on eBay or shows up on a trading location, or like a forum or a group, each one that comes up is one lithograph closer to, like, the last one that's ever going to be up for trade or sale. Like, eventually it will dry up. You
Right.
just you run a risk. You run a risk. Like, how desperately do you want it? Are you willing to give up on it if it means saving yourself $25? I'm not quite sure.
Right. That's absolutely true. Don't get me wrong. I hope you can all get them for free, but it's probably not the reality of the world, right? And and you got to understand. There are some things in the world that become collectible after many years, but there are some things that are instantly collectible, especially when you make them a limited number, like these are, right?
Yeah, yeah. See,
And and
yeah,
and they're not just like Guns N' Roses lithographs. They're some of them anyway. It's all in the eye of the beholder, but some of them are works of art, right? And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say, like, on the level of like Picasso or anything, but I'm just saying, like, they really are, and yeah, you might have to, pay the price for that, and that's just the reality of the world. I don't know what to say. I know. I mean, I get it. We all want one, and oh man, we all can't have one. But don't get mad at. In my opinion, I would tell you, don't get mad at the people who are selling it. And first of all, most of the people who are selling one aren't the people who bought like 50 of them. So don't get too mad at them, right? They're just someone. They're someone who they collected it back then, and maybe they have problems now. And they have to sell it to make money. Maybe they gotta save up money for an operation. Who the hell knows, right? If you have issues with the availability of lithographs, that's something to take up with maybe Guns N' Roses management, and in the future how we can, and we'll talk about that in another episode as well. I think on how to deal with that. But for now, right? I mean, make the decision, right? And maybe make the decision beforehand, right? Say, okay, if this lithograph ever comes up, how much am I going to pay for it? Make that number up in your mind, and now you won't have to worry about anything. Okay, this person's selling it for more than I'm willing to pay, so move on. Or
Yeah.
you know what? Or click buy now. Or and by the way, with eBay, I can tell you my vast experience with it. It never hurts to ask, right? Even if the person doesn't have like a make an offer thing, you could always send them a message and say, hey, are you willing to take this price? You never know what they might say yes, right?
Right.
So
In fact, I think I've succeeded in purchasing a couple of them just by saying that, suggesting, look, if you open up the auction to best offer, I'm willing to put in this particular value.
right, yep,
And they've got the ability to do that. You do have the ability while an auction is ongoing to be able, as a seller, you're able to modify that auction and provide a feature like best offer.
yep.
So it is something that can be done.
And and the other thing I would say is like, don't balk at a $200, $300 price tag too much, because believe me, I wish I could have paid that much for some of the lithographs
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
purchased over the years. And there's one on eBay right now for like $2,500, right? You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
understand.
That's not. Yeah, that doesn't seem particularly realistic, right? But for most situations, I agree that they're not out of the realm of reason.
Right.
But to go back to a topic that you mentioned a few seconds ago, the I think it needs to be stressed that the type of people to go to these concerts and buy like obscene amounts of these to flip like you know 20, 30, 40, 50, they are very much rare. Like there's not too many people that do that. For the most part, the people that are flipping these on eBay, they might be buying, you know, four, five, six, and at those sort of volumes, I probably don't have a problem with it. And we discussed this earlier. I think that without resellers, you know, you, me, and other collectors, there's a whole bunch of these that we would never have got our hands on without these resellers.
Oh, absolutely.
So the
Right.
fundamental concept of buying a few of them to resell for a profit, I not only do I have nothing against that, but I probably encourage it because it allows people all around the world to be able to get their hands on these, not just people that went to the concert. And I know that people that went to the concert that maybe not didn't get their hands on a poster. Look, I get it, but at the same time, like out of all of the concerts that I've gone to, I don't, like, apart from a very small handful that were unfortunately victims of those types of slapdicks that buy 50 or 60 of these and clear the merchandise booths out. Apart from those very, very rare situations, if you are in line and you make getting a lithograph a priority, you will not miss out. Like it's not as much as there may be a whole bunch of resellers out there. Even with all the resellers buying four or five or six of them, you're not, if you make it a priority to grab one, you won't. The people, I feel, most people who are complaining about not being able to get one are the people that prioritize, and not that I disagree with it, because I've been the type of guy to prioritize it as well. But if you're the type of person to prioritize getting to the rail or getting a good position or something along those lines over getting merchandise, you can't be the type of person to complain when you go to the merchandise booth 2 hours into the concert on your way to go get your fourth beer, or on your way out of the concert. You can't be the type of person to complain that what you want is sold out. Like
Right.
that's going to happen regardless of whether there's people buying four or five of them. Like if you make it a low priority, there's going to be there in a crowd of 10, 20, 30, 50, 70,000 people, there's at least going to be 300 people that prioritize it higher than you do.
Well, absolutely, and if you Now, of course, sometimes you don't know you want a lithograph until you see the design. But
Yeah,
if you're going to a show and you know that you want a lithograph because it's the show that you're attending, so you don't even care what the design looks like. You're attending the show, therefore you want a lithograph and you want a shirt. What can I tell you? Get there early and get in line. Yeah,
yeah,
it may suck, but that's the only way you might be able to get it. Or, also understand that a lot of these shows now, Guns N' Roses is doing these like VIP early entry things. Now, even then, I don't think they're selling enough that if each person bought one, it would sell out. But just understand that it might. But again, don't take it out on the people who are doing the VIP early entry. Take it out on GNR for offering that if you
yeah.
want. You know what I mean? But and even then, make friends with people, right? You know what I mean? So if you see people online who are early entry and they get early access to their merchandise, you know, strike up a conversation. I mean, mingle, right? Socialize, right? And say, and be willing to trust, right? And say, hey, man, if I give you, $50, can you get me, a lithograph? Or if I give you $100, can you get me a lithograph and a shirt? You know, and sometimes you gotta take that chance, right? And I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever met one person at a GNR show who I thought was a jerk. You know what I mean? Which is kind of weird and crazy, but maybe I just have like a really good luck. I don't know what it is, but
I agree. I agree
you
that
know,
Guns N' Roses fans in general, like, sorry, not in general, in comparison to other fans of other bands, I don't think any other fan base compares when it comes to being friendly and helpful. Like
yeah,
Guns N' Roses fans are for the vast majority for the they are good people. I would technically speaking, I would disagree with you that in that I have met a couple of jackoffs,
oh, too
but
bad, man. Yeah.
but that's I mean technically only because you said people at a Guns N' Roses concert. I've seen those type of resellers or eBay flippers that I've seen the guys that have bought 50 or 60
Oh,
lithos.
oh,
So
yes.
technically they're at the concert, but they're also technically leaving as soon as they grab them. They're not staying for the concert. So depending on your definition of people at a Guns N' Roses concert, you could say that they qualify or they don't qualify. But in terms
Right.
of people that are there for the actual Guns N' Roses and for the concert, they yeah, I would agree. I don't think I've ever met an asshole. But if you include the people that sadly I think that they've just purchased the cheapest ticket just so as they could get entry into the venue, then they've gone and swept up 50 or 60 lithographs off of a merchant off of one of the merchandise booths and then bailed. There's got to be at least one or two assholes in any group, right?
Right, right. Um,
But I've there's been several times where I've struck up a deal with someone. Hey, if you're going to go to merchandise, go grab me a litho, and later on when I'm grabbing everybody beers, I'll grab you a beer.
that's
Like
exactly what I was gonna say. Like, be cool about it, right? Maybe offer something in return, right? Yeah.
there's
Yep.
so many different there's so many different ways that Guns N' Roses fans can help each other out, and there's different ways to get yourself a lithograph. But another thing that you mentioned about people lining up and getting before they even know what the lithograph looks like, they'll line up. That people like that, you've got to understand that those people technically, they deserve to be prioritized over people that wait until they see the design to line up and go buy a lithograph. Like the people, you will know as well as I do that there's people that will line up for merchandise hours before the show, hours
Yeah.
before they even know what the merchandise looks like. That's the price that they pay to get first dibs.
Yep.
If
Yep.
if you're not willing to line up and spend your afternoon in line for merchandise that may not necessarily end up being as kick ass as you would have hoped it would be, then yeah, I mean that's the way it goes, right?
Right.
If you only decide that you want a litho after you've seen it, and there's people that have already been sitting on their asses on the asphalt for 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, they deserve to be prioritized over you. I hate to say it, but that's the way it goes. They've been
They earned
waiting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've earned it. Absolutely, they've earned it.
You know.
They don't. I don't think they've ever. No matter how long you wait, I don't think you earn the right to buy 50 or 60 of them, but you certainly
Yeah.
do earn the right to buy a few. For you and your friends, or to flip a couple on eBay. I don't see any evil in that.
Right. And another thing we should mention real quick, and we could put links, in whatever format this is going to be delivered in this podcast, but the links might not work if the people aren't members already. But there are various Facebook groups. One of them, there's a Guns N' Roses collectors group that all things GNR collectible. There's also a specific Guns N' Roses lithograph group on Facebook. And so, for people out there that are interested, you might want to join those groups, and people in those groups may be able to help you track what you're looking for down. Just know this, if you join the group and you're acting like a jerk or you're posting all kinds of nonsense, you will be banned with death alacrity, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but still, if you're interested in joining those groups, you can reach out to Rich or I, and we can add you as a member, no problem.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like the larger the group becomes, the more likely you are to be able to find someone who either has the design that you want or knows somebody who might have the design that you want. And especially in those groups, you'll probably get a better deal than eBay because you don't have to worry about PayPal fees or eBay fees. And I feel as if, at least from personal experience, that when people can see that it's a fellow fan, there's a little bit more of a personal connection there rather than just some faceless username on eBay, the prices end up being a little bit more reasonable.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, let's move on to some, dare I say, fan questions. I'm not too sure whether they qualify as fans yet, but there are some people that wanted to ask some questions related to the lithographs. So we can just quickly go through some of them. There weren't too many anyway, and then I think we can probably wrap this up. The first question comes from a gentleman by the name of Christian. He said that he'd like to ask who chooses the litho designs for each show. That is actually a tricky question to answer because I've received varying responses that were not particularly definitive. The short answer, the answer at the end that I would probably put my name to is that there's obviously management, merchandise management. There's a group of people that are involved in organizing the merchandise for Guns N' Roses, and then there's obviously someone in charge of curating the designs from not only potential in-house artists but from freelance artists. The artists will all provide their designs, and someone in Guns N' Roses management will look at those designs. Probably they'll come up with a design or two that they like, and those designs get, as far as I've been told, get put in front of the eyes of Fernando, and Fernando sort of gives the okay on the design that he likes. Whether it's a design, whether I'm not too sure whether he gets only to see the one design that the merchandise management staff prefer, and he just says yes or no, or whether he gets to look at the multiple designs that have been offered, and gets to weigh in, or whether he has veto, or whether it's a consensus decision. I'm not quite sure, but it feels like it's a group decision made by Fernando and by the Guns N' Roses, the merchandise management for Guns N' Roses, the group, the handful of people involved in that. They'll sort of talk to each other and determine which one is the best one to go with.
Interesting,
Now,
man. You know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It, it. I think it's a tough thing to deal with because, well, I mean, I'll continue on that train of thought once we talk about the next question, because I think the next question is somewhat related. Shirley mentioned that she would like to hear the backstories on how they chose the references for each
Hmm.
design, which is a little bit related to how the design for a litho is chosen.
Yeah, sounds like
Um,
it. Yeah.
what I feel like is that generally speaking, it is a consensus decision with regard to which litho is designed. Which design is chosen, and as well as which reference or which theme or which topic is going to be the backdrop for a particular design. I feel like that sometimes an artist is requested to do a design, and the entire theme of the lithograph is put into the artist's hands. So the artist himself could be the one who is deciding on the theme for the lithograph. Other times it's maybe Guns N' Roses management or merchandise management, or even, as we mentioned before, the band themselves giving suggestions as to what they want the theme to be, which I'm guessing is handed off to the artists, and the artists work with that theme and try to come up with something that fits the bill. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Fernando himself may have suggested a few designs as well. I think that the references for each of these designs come from multiple places, and to say that it's just one person or a handful of specific people that are in charge of making these decisions, I don't think that would be accurate. I feel like that there's so many people involved in the process that some of these ideas will come from different people each and every time.
Huh. Yeah.
Um, what have we got else? What else have we got? Jenny asked, she said, I'd like to know if they have a call for artists for the lithos. Um, this one, I'm pretty sure I can answer. Generally speaking, no. I don't think that they do. I think that at least for 2016, they clearly had some in-house artists do some of the designs. For the other artists that are not in-house, I believe that merchandise management sort of sought them out. I think for the most part, especially for 2016, I think that they had a handful of artists that they knew through the industry, and they were the ones that went specifically to the artist and said, "Hey, are you interested in doing a design?" And I think that that's how it gets handed out. I know there was one particular artist that went out of his way to make himself available. Like he actually put his hand up and said to Guns N' Roses, "Hey, I'd like to do some designs if that's okay with you." And they said yes, and he's been a part of the party, I suppose, ever since. However, in terms of having a call for artists, I don't think that they do. I think that they've got enough artists in the mix of it that they don't need to make a call for new ones. But that being said, if you want to be, if you're an artist and you want to be involved, by all means, I think that getting in touch with Guns N' Roses, or specifically Guns N' Roses merchandise management, that'll be the way to go. I don't think it would hurt at all, especially with so many shows that are still up and coming for 2020. They're not going to say no to looking at your proposal and see whether they can fit you in somewhere. My only My only disappointment is that I don't really have an artistic bone in my body. I don't know about you. I mean, maybe can you play an instrument or anything like that, Tim?
Um, I used to play a little bit of piano and guitar, but it's been a long time, so definitely I don't think so anymore. Although I would love to. I think I just learned a little too later in life. You know what I mean? Was the
Yeah.
problem? You know, but yeah, I think they should. Well, I don't know. I mean, an open call for like every artist in the world would probably be too many design stuff to sort through. But I would like them to, like, let's just say you pick a leg, like, okay, the next North American leg, or European, whatever leg, doesn't matter, wherever you are, and just, get submissions from fans who live in that area for designs, and don't wrong. Okay, if all the submissions suck, then fine, we'll go with some other artist, right? But I think there's a lot of very artistic fans out there, and I've seen some really cool designs that people have worked up, and I would love to GNR use some of those. I think they'd be great.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think you mentioned it before that there were. I think it was last year they actually opened up a competition to fan artwork.
Yeah, for like a poster or something. And I don't know
Yeah,
whatever
so
happened with that because I don't see any posters getting released. But uh, you know, yeah, it'd be. I think the designs I saw were amazing from that. And I would love if they were used. Right,
yeah, I
but
think look if you are an artist, it would certainly not hurt to get in contact if you are interested in doing art for Guns N' Roses. What's the worst they can do is say no.
right, right.
These days, all it takes is 30 seconds to send an email or make a phone call. It's pretty easy to I'm sure to get in touch with them if you really wanted to, especially if you're already in the art world. I'm sure that it's only a matter of asking the question uh, for you to be able to find someone who can get in touch with those guys that make the decisions and see whether you've got the right stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And last but not least, we've got someone by the name of Chris who asks, Tim, do you know where I could find a 2016 Washington D.C. lithograph or a 2017 Philadelphia lithograph?
Well, I'm not sure about Philly, but there's a 2016 Washington lithograph on eBay right now.
Yes, there is,
You
and for
know,
a reasonable price too.
right? So the advice I would give people for eBay, when you search, first of all, make sure you spell things correctly, because otherwise, the searches will not go in your favor. Also, I would search guns. I would search the word guns, then roses, then litho, then do another one for guns, roses, lithograph, and then maybe even guns, roses, poster, because some people call them posters instead of lithos, which is technically inaccurate, but still, nonetheless, you might have to search that if you want to find what you're looking for.
I think those are all very good suggestions, along with the suggestion from a few minutes back about joining the online forums or the Facebook groups. The more sort of connections you make out there, the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more communities you're able to sort of reach, and hopefully you'll be able to connect with someone that's got the lithograph that you're looking for. But yeah, 2016. See, 2016, 2017. You know, I know that like the 2017 Philadelphia lithograph was, it was quite popular, but it certainly wasn't rare. Your biggest enemy is time. The fact that you've taken 2 or 3 years or going on 4 years to really start asking the question. I feel as if some of these lithos had been searched for a few years ago, you would have not only had more options, but you would have also had some friendlier pricing. Um, but yeah, that's those are all good suggestions, Tim. Make sure that your eBay searches are spelled correctly, and you're sort of widening your net when you're searching for stuff, and please become a member of the trading community, the collector community, because eventually someone's going to come up with something that they're willing to part with, or something that they're willing to trade for, and when they do, when they pop up, you have the chance to connect with them and maybe steal a deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well that was, yeah, we didn't really have many more questions than that. I think that was really all of it. Perhaps people were a little bit tight-lipped, a little bit reluctant to ask questions because they weren't really sure what the format was going to be. But I'm hoping that they're still paying attention to this podcast. They know what's in store. If any of them have got more questions now that you know what the podcast is like, you've got some ideas of what you want to talk about. Please shoot through your suggestions. Send us an email or a message, and we'll I'm sure we'll be able to cover those topics in future episodes. Okay, so last but not least, I thought it would be a little bit fun to just maybe hand out some awards. I thought that just to round things off, maybe we should maybe hand out some awards to our favorite lithograph from the leg, or maybe some of the notable lithographs from the leg. I've come up with some tentative, amusing titles for some of these awards. If anyone doesn't like the titles that I've given them, and they think that there's a more appropriate name for any of these trophies, please suggest them. I think I'm open to any suggestions. The first award that I would like to hand out is what I've tentatively referred to as the November Rain Award. Which lithograph won the 2016 leg? Which lithograph is most epic? Right? When you think of the best lithograph from this leg, what would you consider the November Rain of the 2016 lithos, Tim?
And this answer might be cheating a little bit, but because they were designed to be side by side, the Foxborough lithographs. If I could call that one lithograph, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to phrase that. But,
well, there's no rules here. You can say whatever you want, Tim.
So I would. That's my vote anyway.
Okay.
For all the reasons I already said, and if any of you guys missed that, you can rewind or go back, whatever the phrase is, and listen to what we said about it. But yeah, for me, that's the answer to that.
I think that's a good decision. I think I'm gonna go with the Homer decision and go with Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to choose Cincinnati over Foxborough, because I agree with you that having them side by side and just it being that the first multi-litho design that really shocked everyone, I suppose, when it came out.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking, and it's a beautiful design by an artist that I wish we'd see more of. However, yeah, Cincinnati's just so beautiful. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, if I was to do some nitpicking, I'd prefer a white background. However, everything else about it sort of ticks all the boxes for me. So, Foxborough and Cincinnati. I think that we've come up with some good winners for the inaugural November Rain Award.
And speaking of the Cincinnati lithograph, I misspoke earlier. It is still on eBay as of the time that we're recording this episode right now. So if it's still available when you guys are listening to it, go check it out. It might still be there. You might be able to get your hands on one.
I actually think that I can see that it's still on there, and I think that is a very reasonable price, all things considered.
I think so too, and I know a lot of you are going to disagree with that, but that's cool. That's your opinion. But I think so.
This is the thing. Like, I get told constantly by Guns N' Roses fans and non-Guns N' Roses fans, like fans of other bands, or people who identify more as a fan of another band, that Guns N' Roses fans generally don't have big pockets. That's what I've been told a few times, and that the idea of expecting a Guns N' Roses fan to pay, $300, $500,000 or whatever for a poster, is unreasonable. And I kind of, I mean, I disagree with that on multiple levels. I think that I understand where some of them might be coming from. That that I don't think that the concept of balking at the idea of spending hundreds of dollars on what was originally a $50 poster. Balking at the idea of doing that is not something that is isolated to just Guns N' Roses fans. I think that.
Right, not at all. And and clearly, I mean, there's people who spend a ton of money not only on tickets but traveling, to see this band, right?
Right.
There's
right.
people that spend a ton of money on other memorabilia other than lithographs, like myself, and then there's people look at the money that at the money people spent on the box set, right? That came out, right? So I think that now whether or not everyone has their own thing, right? So the person that spends a lot of money traveling to see the band might not be willing to spend the money on the lithograph, and that's fine. Everyone has their own thing that they're into. But I think people, I wouldn't call like GNR fans poor or anything, right? You know what I mean?
Far from it. Far from it.
Right.
I mean, I think you and I are both very well aware of the subset of Guns N' Roses fans that are deep into bootlegs and soundboards and things like that. And some of those like older like VHS recordings that are rare and bootlegs and dare I say it, the aforementioned tapes and other stuff. And people are willing to pay thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars for those items. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand that items like that are they're different because they can be the cost of those items can be split amongst multiple people. Like if you find someone who's got a soundboard of a particular concert that you like, you can go rope in a few of your friends to share the cost, and everyone gets a copy of the bootleg. But you can't do that with a poster, can you?
No.
Unless you're I don't know, conjoined twins, or you live in the same you live in the same house as all of your friends, and you're happy to have it up on the living room wall. I'm not quite sure, but generally speaking, I can understand the difference between those types of items. However, yeah, to say that Guns N' Roses fans don't have money to spend when clearly, not only are there fans 4 years on from the start of the reunion tour, they're still willing to spend $300 on a pit ticket, another $200 or whatever on top of that $300 ticket just to get in a half hour early, or $1,000 or $1,500 for a VIP package. In addition to the hundreds or thousands of dollars for traveling, for plane tickets, for hotel rooms, yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all that fans don't have money. I think that it's more that so fans will, each fan has got their own thing that they're willing to spend big money on.
Right.
And
right.
I think that there is a healthy amount of Guns N' Roses fans out there, clearly, that are willing to pay, top money for what is one of the rarer limited edition things that Guns N' Roses has produced. Like the Locked and Loaded box set was limited edition, but that's a big limited edition. Like
10,000, right?
Whereas some of these lithographs, maybe not necessarily 2016, but 2017, there's
80.
There's some designs that are limited to double digits. So,
right. I mean,
these are items that long after the concert has come and gone, these items persist, and because of that, uh, they have an inherent value uh, that maybe a concert experience or something else that's a little bit more ephemeral can't provide, and vice versa. I mean,
right,
there's something
right.
that a concert experience can provide that a poster can't. But that's the reason.
Absolutely.
That's a right.
Right.
That's the reason why people are willing to pay big money for both.
Well,
Uh,
and I want to add real quick. We understand that there are GNR fans out there that may not have a ton of money, or whatever phrase you want to use. We're not trying to exclude you. All are welcome. You know, and to that end, I mean, I know we've talked about it before, and they should really do this. It'd be great to have like a coffee table book or something with all the lithographs in it, so that any kind of GNR fan, regardless of your income level or savings or whatever, can have this kind of thing in their house and peruse it once in a while at their leisure, and appreciate it. You know,
Agreed. Agreed.
and I hope they do that one day. I don't
Although
know.
it's gonna have to be multiple volumes. You realize that because
Yeah, at this point, right? Right? You
yeah.
know,
All
but
right.
I think for the price of things, and again, I know some people don't like this, and I know some people don't agree, and blah blah blah. But it's the price that the market will bear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know who do you blame that on, society. I don't know, but like it just is what it is. I mean, for example, okay, let's say you buy your house, 10 years ago for $100,000, right? Does that mean you're going to sell it for 100,000 to today? No, you're going to sell it for the price the market will bear, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? And why should anyone else do anything differently? With a lithograph, right? You know what I mean? Uh,
Agreed.
you know,
Wholeheartedly. I
right?
mean, we you and I have been on the wrong end of some transactions. We've ended up having to pay more than we may have been particularly comfortable paying, but that's it comes with the territory. If you want what you want, you have to pay for it, right?
Right,
Or you
right.
don't get it.
You
One or
know,
the other.
I mean,
Uh,
like, right. I mean, in my case, I'm single. I don't have children. I've made these choices, but obviously, and I have a fairly decent job. All those things combined gives me a little more disposable income to do this kind of stuff, and again, that's cool and all, but doesn't make me any bigger fan than anyone else, right? We're all big fans of GNR, and just some of us can afford some crazy lithograph, some of us can't, and that's fine, right?
yeah.
I mean, nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that.
and I think that I guess maybe worst case scenario, if you can't get the lithograph that you want for the price that you want, well, maybe you can spend that money on going to see Guns N' Roses again. Like
Absolutely,
there
absolutely.
it's not the worst thing in the world to to be able to hold on to your money, right?
Right,
Like there's worse problems to deal with.
man.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next award. I've referred to this. I'm going to refer to this as the Chinese Democracy Award. The either the most underrated design or the design that has aged the best. Because I think, I feel like that Chinese Democracy didn't really get its dues when it first came out, but it's slowly become a fan favorite for a lot of people. And I think that there may be a couple of designs that were not so popular to begin with, or even now may not necessarily be showing up in too many people's top tens. However, they are either sneaky good or have become quality designs or over time. Uh, what do you think, Tim? Is there a Chinese democracy within the 2016 lithos?
I think there is, and my vote would be for the Seattle lithograph. Not only on my own personal experience with it, like not liking it at first, but growing more and more accustomed to it. But I think that's the case with a lot of people that I've met. A lot of people are now trying to track that one down because there's something about it that they've appreciated more over time. Um, I think that's different for each person. I can't say what it is for everyone, but um, that's my vote. For this particular award.
Agreed. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think it was very underrated to begin with, and just I think I like how it really flipped the concept on its head. Like you look at all the other designs that came before it, and it's all sort of roughly working with the same concept of maybe Guns N' Roses skull motif, and then all of a sudden for it just to be something very, very city specific and to have just the Guns N' Roses logo, I think it really turned the idea on its head in a good way. For me, however, like I totally agree with you on Seattle, but I would like to mention the Mexico City design and Philadelphia. I think that Philadelphia for me was one of the ones that jumped out at me from the very beginning. It is a little like I can understand that it's pretty punk-ish, that it's a little bit jarring compared to some of the other designs. However, I don't know, it's always worked well with me, and it has slowly creeped up in value year after year ever since it came out, and I think that a lot of people are starting to realize that it may not necessarily have been given its dues back in back in 2016 or so. Mexico City, on the other hand, I think is very, very underrated. It's a simple design, but just because it's done in it's just different. Having it in a different language and it just being a simple, classy sort of approach, I like it. I think it's if you're just going to have the bullet logo, something like that is going to work really well. Whether you can find a copy these days, that's another thing. They are out there, but they are they don't come up too often. Those two would be my choices for the Chinese Democracy Award.
Right on, right on.
Okay, so next one, what I am referring to as the Swimming with Dolphins Award. Which lithograph from 2016, Tim, leaves you kind of scratching your head thinking, what the hell is this all about?
I gotta say, for me, man, it's still that Nashville litho. Now maybe it's like some kind of style of art that I'm not familiar with or something. Maybe that's what's going on there. I'll admit I'm not up to snuff on all the different art styles out there in the world these days, but I and again, like the other thing is like, other than the company itself, the Hatch Print Company or whatever they're called, what the design has to do with Nashville at all? Like, unless the guy sitting there, or woman sitting there, who knows whose face it is in the background there, unless that person is like a famous Nashville person, I really don't get the reference, and that leaves me scratching my head, man.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. For me, it's Nashville as well, for all the reasons that you mentioned, plus it being a different size for no reason, for no good reason.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Just not really, doesn't really vibe with me. I can't really put my finger on why it is how it is. So yeah, definitely, we're going to give the Swimming with Dolphins Award to Nashville. The thing is, like you're saying, that what makes it Nashville. The irony is that it's almost meta, in that what makes it Nashville is the fact that it was printed by a Nashville company. That's it. Like that's the only reference, as far as I can see, is that Hatch is a very famous Nashville printing company, and they printed it, so that's the Nashville reference, which is about as meta as it may come when it comes to posters. So, all right,
seriously, right? I mean, yeah.
Nashville, Swimming with Dolphins, and last but not least, I want to give the Bad Obsession Award out. The Bad Obsession Award is a lithograph you most like, that perhaps others don't. Something that maybe is a guilty pleasure, or something that you like that your friends seem to disagree about.
Well, I know we talked about this one. Well, obviously we talked about it, but like on this episode, or maybe a past episode if we're gonna do a two-parter here. But what you may call it? And other people have said the same thing that you said about it. But for me, it's the KC litho, man. Like, I love that design. Yeah, right. I think it's brilliant, man. It might be my favorite for this entire leg. Well, no,
Wow,
I already said the
big
Foxborough
call.
one was, so it's definitely up there with the Foxborough one, though. Yep.
It's definitely holding on to your bad obsession award with two hands.
What
Well,
about you?
well, first of all, I want to comment on your choice. That's a perfect example of a bad obsession award, because I certainly don't understand the appeal. Like I get it, but like we mentioned when we discussed it earlier, that there's a lot of things that I feel like could have, if it had been done a little bit differently, would have been more appealing to me. So yeah, I think you're all the way out in Cootie Town with your decision there. For me, Bad Obsession Award has to go to Toronto, because
Oh,
I like it. It is a little bit different, but I've rarely run into anybody who likes the design as much as I do. So for me, that's the logical choice. Other designs, I feel there's other designs that I might disagree about with other people. However, there's enough people out there who have purchased it, and sort of these other designs, and the values clearly dictate that it's a popular design. However, Toronto, whenever you do see it, it very rarely seems to sell. It just, and no one ever seems to be asking for it. Like, no one ever pops up in the forum, or on the Facebook groups asking for a Toronto. So
that's a good point. Yeah, right.
it strikes me that it's perhaps not particularly popular, but I like it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give the award to Toronto.
Nice, nice.
And with that, I think we're done. I think after all that
Oh my
that
god.
blabbering, I think we've actually managed to get to the end of this episode, or this part two of this episode. Is there? I don't know. I think we've covered all the bases. I think maybe we've covered too many bases. I think we may have created a sport with more than four bases.
Right,
But
right.
but is there anything else that you can think of that to talk about before we bring these proceedings to a close?
Um, just want to say, if any of my comments tonight seem repetitive, it's because I'm extremely tired. Uh, Number two, I hate the sound of my own voice, and number three, thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate it.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. If you are masochistic enough to have listened to both of these episodes in their entirety, kudos to you, because I'm didn't expect it to go this long. If you are that dedicated that you've happily or not so happily sat through the whole thing, and you're listening to this now, I applaud your commitment. I hope that you've enjoyed yourself, even remotely as much as I believe Tim and I have in bringing it to you. I really do hope that you join us for the next episode, where we plan on looking at the golden generation of Guns N' Roses lithos. I believe the 2017 lithographs. We'll be approaching that topic with our next episode. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. If everyone's happy for us to do another episode. I would like you all to join us. If you've got any questions related to the 2017 lithos that you'd like us to answer, or if there's any particular topics that are related to the 2017 lithographs, by all means, send them in. we'd like to discuss them. We'd like to know what's on your mind and what you'd like us to discuss. And I think, yeah, thank you is definitely in order. I can't stress it enough. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's interest in the website as well. I certainly pay attention to the amount of traffic that it generates. I appreciate all the emails that I receive, and keep them all coming in. Thank you very much. We'll probably call it at that. I don't know when the next episode will be. Probably not anytime that soon. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think, Tim? Maybe we'll let the Latin America leg play out. See what the designs are for Latin America, and maybe that'll light a flame under the asses of some Guns N' Roses fans. Might bring a little bit more of them into the fray and get more people interested in our podcast.
I think that sounds like a great plan.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Until next time, this has been Rich and Tim talking for a very long time about lithos. Thank you very much. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.